Hi, everybody, and welcome back to The Female Athlete, powered by Coach Parry. My name is Hayley Nixon. We're going to be joining Shona Hendricks shortly, and we are going to chat about all things strength-related. Sometimes a bit of a taboo subject with our female athletes, but very important to know when might be the better time during your cycle and what entails strength training. So thanks for joining us. Please make sure to subscribe to our channel so you get notifications for when our next video is available, and enjoy the chat today. All right, hi everybody and welcome back. It's good to have Shona on screen again. So our quite broad subject matter for today is strength training, specifically for the female athlete. And there's probably two categories we're going to look at in terms of relating it to our female runners, our female athletes. And Shona, if we can really just get your opinion on if and when there is a good time for women to be training strength specifically or high intensity. And then maybe we'll move more specifically onto like what strength training actually entails.
Awesome, thanks, Hels. Good to be chatting again around these really important topics. Yeah, I mean, I think you know the question of strength being important has already long been answered, and the importance thereof even more so for female athletes. And I know in one of our future videos coming up, we talk around the importance for peri and post menopause, but that's a whole separate video. But you know, a lot of the scientific research at the moment says that there isn't necessarily, or they haven't found enough reason for athletes to sort of periodize their strength training according to their cycles. But anecdotally, a lot of people are seeing more and more that yes, perhaps there is a better time to be training strength within your cycle. And I think, you know, again, it's not all scientifically backed, but there's a lot of question to a lot of the science that has been done and the quality thereof. And you know, they've only really maybe measured things over one cycle as opposed to tracking women over a number of months. And so I think there's a lot of some really, really good science coming through, and some researchers who are doing some excellent work there. But I think just, you know, anecdotally, I know for me personally, I feel that would different doing strength at different times. And I mean, I'm sure you as an athlete as well have felt that. And so in speaking to a lot of other scientists around the world, there is a little bit of thinking that, yes, it's probably better to do a lot more of your strength and power kind of training within the first phase of your cycle. So that's the follicular phase, which is really from day one of menses or bleeding until ovulation. And so there is a little bit of thinking that would be the best time to really optimize on that strength kind of training.
Okay, great. So I guess it brings us back to what we've discussed before, and what we'll continue to touch on is this idea of more women tracking the menstrual cycle. So like knowledge is power. So if you actually know when you're ovulating or know when your, like you say, your days of bleeding are, then you can start to structure that training around that. And am I correct that it's got a lot to do with hormone levels, like when your estrogen is high versus when it's low?
Yeah, spot on. Thanks. That's exactly it. So, and yeah, the importance of tracking, I think, is key. So if we just touch on that, you know, I'm saying the first phase of your cycle, which on average would last 14 days, right? But that's average. And so the importance of tracking that for yourself and really figuring that out, because I mean, not every single female runs on a normal, in inverted commas, 28-day cycle. And so some females run on a 21-day cycle. And so it's really, or even up to 35, 34-day cycle. And so it's really important to figure that out for yourself and where you feel good in those times, because it is about how you're feeling. And if perceptually you're not feeling strong, then doing a strength session is going to feel really, really hard. And so, but you're spot on about the estrogen. And it is that essentially in those first 2 weeks, so from day one of menses until ovulation, that is when estrogen is peaking. And while estrogen has got a pretty bad rep over the years, it actually isn't. It's really beneficial for strength work and power work.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Shona, so moving on from there, what are we actually then defining as strength training? What are we promoting to our athletes? A lot of athletes are scared of bulking up, especially runners are scared of getting heavy. And how do we kind of get rid of that bad stigma of strength training and try and relate it to like power for running or cadence or speed?
Yeah, I mean, it is such a perceptual thing right around bulking up, but more and more we're learning and just realizing that stress that you place on your body from doing strength work, from lifting weights, really is so important, especially for runners. That is so much is done in a one directional kind of plane. that stress that you put on your bones and your muscles and your tendons and joints is so beneficial because it's multi-directional. And so it has such a good long-lasting effect. And if we're talking injury prevention, yes, that's almost been regurgitated over and over again and how important that is. But from a performance aspect, yes, you can do strength work to not necessarily bulk up and be too heavy, but where it is making such a big impact on your actual running performance. You know, and I've seen studies that have said that increased strength work can improve your running economy by up to 4 to 5%. So running economy, if you think of that as like the economy of your car, the fuel economy of your car, you want to be utilizing less fuel and be able to go longer and harder and faster. And so doing some strength training can improve that by 4 to 5%. So that feels like you're getting, you know, freebies, and without even running, you're getting improvements. And so, yeah, that's vitally important. And I just think that the perceptions are needing to change a little bit. You don't have to do strength work that's going to make you bulk up, and depends on what you're doing and when you're doing it and how that's going to have that effect. So really important to obviously be doing these things properly so that we're not necessarily getting injured as well, making sure that the technique and everything is done right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, if you can gain 4 to 5% in your running efficiency, in your speed, but not have to spend that time banging it out on the road, but you're actually getting that from being in the gym, which is changing the load and maybe changing your mental aspect for a while because it's not another running session, then absolutely, like it's a win on all counts. And we've touched on it a bit, and I know there'll be more seminars to come, but it's obviously also going to have longer term benefits for women, especially with bone density and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. There definitely will be a long and big discussion around peri and post menopause and the effects, the longitudinal effects of that for, you know, from a strength training point of view. I think just something to really note as well is that while we're talking around, you know, monitoring and changing things to suit your cycle, it's important, I think, to realize that we're also not saying that we need to necessarily do less in those times. It's about really optimizing the type of training you're doing at specific points in time. And so the way we've looked at adjusting certain things within the plans, it's not around then taking things out and you're doing 75% less. And I always use this concept of people say shrink it and pink it and you know, to make it specific for women. And I hate that concept. We're not saying that women need to do less. It's just around optimizing the intensity or the load or the volume at a particular point in time so that you are really gaining the most from that.
Yeah, sure. And I think for each woman to realize, like, once you know your cycle, you empower yourself to make the when more effective. Instead of me just following Shona's program because Shona's had a really successful result, it might be slightly different days or times of the month for me, but we can still end up with the same volume and the same intensity at the end of a calendar month. Yeah. Okay,
that's
great.
Exactly it.
Cool. Well, thanks, Shones. I look forward to more of these chats, and thanks for some great information today on strength training.
Awesome. Thanks, Hales. Yeah, we'll catch you for the next one.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Once again, a pretty important conversation relating to female athletes and their training. So thank you, Shona Hendricks, for your time on strength. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our channel below. And if you'd like to listen to our more extensive video on strength training, menopause, red S, many of the above, all combined in one, please make sure you find it in our video section, and you can watch the full hour-long seminar. We'll see you next time. Bye.